We are on to chapter 22 of A Course in Miracles, and we will start with the introduction to this chapter. It's a short introduction, so this will probably be a shorter video. We'll see. Here we go. And this chapter is called Salvation and the Holy Relationship. Take pity on yourself, so long enslaved. Rejoice, whom God hath joined, have come together, and need no longer look on sin apart. No two can look on sin together, for they could never see it in the same place and time. Sin is a strictly individual perception, seen in the other, yet believed by each to be within himself. And each one seems to make a different error, and one the other cannot understand. Brother, it is the same, made by the same, and forgiven for its maker in the same way. The holiness of your relationship forgives you and your brother, undoing the effects of what you both believed and saw. And with their going is the need for sin gone with them. Who has need for sin? Only the lonely and alone, who see their brothers different from themselves. It is this difference, seen but not real, that makes the need for sin not real but seem justified. And all this would be real if sin were so. For an unholy relationship is based on differences where each one thinks the other has what he has not. They come together, each to complete himself and rob the other. They stay until they think that there is nothing left to steal and then move on. And so they wander through a world of strangers, unlike themselves, living with their bodies perhaps under a common roof that shelters neither, in the same room and yet a world apart. A holy relationship starts from a different premise. Each one has looked within and seen no lack. Accepting his completion, he would extend it by joining with another, whole as himself. He sees no difference between these selves, for differences are only of the body. Therefore, he looks on nothing he would take. He denies not his own reality because it is the truth. Just under heaven does he stand, but close enough not to return to earth. For this relationship has heaven's holiness. How far from home can a relationship so like to heaven be? Think what a holy relationship can teach. Here is belief in differences undone. Here is the faith in differences shifted to sameness. And here is sight of differences transformed to vision. Reason now can lead you and your brother to the logical conclusion of your union. It must extend as you extended when you and he joined. It must reach out beyond itself as you reached out beyond the body to let you and your brother be joined. And now the sameness that you saw extends and finally removes all sense of differences, so that the sameness that lies beneath them all becomes apparent. Here is the golden circle where you recognize the Son of God. For what is born into a holy relationship can never end. And that's the introduction to this chapter, chapter 22, Salvation and the Holy Relationship. Let's go to the basics, especially for those who are new, who might be new to watching. So there's two things. We live in a world of duality, right? There's a lot of twos, and the Course makes it very simple by saying there's really only two things. There's ego, and there's the Holy Spirit, right? There's the ego and there's the Holy Spirit. There's love and there's fear. There is the holy relationship and the unholy relationship, which is also called the special relationship. There is God, and there is not Satan, but there is ego, the ego. There is the thought system of God, which is the thought system of the Holy Spirit, and that is a thought system that has the atonement principle, and the atonement principle is that there is no separation from God. We are not separate from God, and we have never been separate from God. And God is our eternal and immortal reality that has never changed and could never change. The ego's thought system is the thought system of separation that says, yes, the separation from God and from everything else is very real and very serious, and sin is real, and guilt is real, and suffering is real. Take pity on yourself, so long enslaved. The ego, in the world of Christianity, the idea is that Satan runs the world, right? Satan is the ruler of this world. The Course does not use that terminology. It talks about the ego. To say Satan it seems to suggest a power that is in conflict and is at war with God. Jesus is here saying that God is not at war with anything, because God does not attack. God is perfect love, perfect peace, perfect oneness. So there's no war in reality. There is a war, you could say, within ourselves, because we have been so conditioned to the thought system of the ego, and that's what Jesus is saying here. Take pity on yourself, so long enslaved. We've been so conditioned that we feel this tug of war, if you will, when we are faced with truth like the Course is presenting. We struggle with it because of that egoic conditioning. And this is also an echo of Plato's cave allegory. And just to remind you of that, that there are these prisoners in a cave. They're chained, bound, and chained, and they're facing a wall, and there's a fire behind them, and it's making shadows on the wall, and the prisoners think that this is reality, the shadows that they see on the wall. One of them gets free and goes outside of the cave. It's a struggle, and gets outside and sees the sun and is like, oh my God, this is reality. Goes back in to tell the other prisoners, but they don't want to hear it because because the shadows have become so familiar, and they can't believe that there is anything else. And they actually want to kill this guy who got free. And that's like Jesus. There's a certain hatred of what Jesus stands for, what he symbolizes, and Jesus says that throughout the Course. And we do two things in regard to each other, mainly. Very seldom do we see ourselves as equals with each other, and very seldom do we see the sameness. Rather, we see differences all over the place, right? We see separation. That's the ego, right? We get into our superiority and our inferiority complexes in regard to each other, and I'm going to explain what that is in a moment. This comes from Freud. Freud pointed this out. He was one of the first, I believe, to point this out. He actually coined these terms, as I understand it. We see the other arrogantly. We feel superior to the other, and we put others down. That would be the superiority complex. We feel like we're better. We're ultimately it becomes we're more holy, we're more spiritual, we're more spiritually aware, we're more conscious, whatever it is. But then there's the inferiority complex, which is the other has something that we need, and we we envy them, we're jealous, we hate them equally in that regard because they have something that we need, that we, Jesus says here that we would steal from them and then move on. And that's how a lot of relationships go, especially people get into relationships, let's just talk about romantic relationships. People get into relationships and they think the other is somehow going to save them, right? The other is going to fulfill them, is going to complete them, and it's going to do something for them that they can't do for themselves, which Jesus is saying, that's an illusion. That's illusory. And we all know that, but we still do it. And when our partner does not do that for us, we that's when the relationship starts to break down, unless we're open to the holy relationship idea, which is that in reality, we are full and complete in ourselves, and we lack nothing. We might not fully accept that yet, but if we're at least open to it, then we're on the right track. The other does not have anything. The other cannot make us happy. They cannot fulfill us. They cannot do anything really that we cannot do for ourselves. They can't make the choice for us to be happy, or to be at peace, or to be anything that we do not choose ourselves. And vice versa. They can't make us happy, and they also can't hurt us. They can't do anything that would hurt us if we're full and complete in ourselves. And so that would be the holy relationship. Even if only one person in the relationship is doing that work, it's you can still make it a holy relationship if that person is holding that space. Jesus doesn't say it here. I think he might say it later in the course, but he says, and so they wander through a world of strangers unlike themselves, living with their bodies, perhaps under a common roof that shelters neither, in the same room and yet a world apart. How many relationships in this world are like that, where it's like two strangers? It's like, I don't know you, right? I don't know you from Adam. But the reality is that that's the egoic way of looking at things. That's seeing the body. In reality, everyone is really ultimately the same. We have the same two things going on. We have the right-minded thought system of the Holy Spirit. We have the wrong-minded thought system of the ego. Right? Some people would say the angel on one shoulder and the devil on one shoulder, and on the other shoulder. However you want to look at it, but the Course does not. Again, the Course does not use those terms. It uses the terms the ego and the Holy Spirit. We have the thought system of the ego, which is the thought system of separation. We have the thought system of the Holy Spirit, which is the right-minded thought system of the atonement, which is there is no need for sacrifice. God's Son does not need to be sacrificed, or there is no sacrifice necessary. Love does not require anything. Love does not coerce. Love does not force. Love does not attack. Love merely is, and just waits for you to accept it. To accept that you are love, and that you are whole and perfect, full, fulfilled already. You are one, and you need nothing except to accept that. And that is a very tall order when it comes down to it. Very, very few of us really do that. That's really basically saying to live in a space of unconditional love and acceptance, and complete forgiveness of everyone and everything, which means holding on to nothing and taking nothing here too seriously because you understand that it all started with this tiny mad idea of separation that is not true to begin with. And that is where the world of separation, the universe of separation arose from that. Holy relationship, where the belief in difference is undone, where the ego is undone, and where we start to shift our vision to sameness, and we see the sameness of everyone and everything. We're all in the same boat. We're all equal members of the sonship, including Jesus. Jesus is not any higher than us. Jesus merely went all the way with this process and is encouraging us to consider doing that as well. Not forcing us, not saying we're going to go to hell if we don't do it, not telling us we're wrong or bad or stupid or there's something something wrong with us. Rather, it's just saying, yeah, I know this is hard. I know how it is. I was there myself. I was in the same position, and now I'm in a place where I can show you what this is, and I can show you very clearly what you need to do if you're willing to look at this with me, and to do the work necessary to fulfill the conditions necessary to return home again. Let's see. Here is the golden circle where you recognize the Son of God. For what is born into a holy relationship can never end. The golden circle, the never-ending, the return home to the eternity of love. Let's put it that way. Anyway, and I think that's a good place to end. And the next section here is, or the first section really, that was the introduction. The first section is the message of the holy relationship. See you on the flip-flop. Om.